Run it, baby. Ricky Cheese, baby!
Hey guys, it's your boy Ricky Cheese with another episode of Grinding for Greatness. On today's show, we have the author of the book Mat Return, The Resurgence of Amateur Wrestling, Ron Lang. Tune in to hear Ron and I discuss the book and his main reasons for writing it, how the growth of women's wrestling saved the Olympics, the importance of coaching and leadership, and Ron's giveaway program with Amazon. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode. And remember, keep on grinding for greatness. So, for those that don't know, this is the book. Ron Lang is the author. Ron is our guest tonight. Mat Return, The Resurgence of Amateur Wrestling. Is it amateur wrestling? Yeah, amateur wrestling in the United States. Tell me a little bit about, first, let's go back to your background with wrestling, just a quick background, and then what made you decide to write the book?
Absolutely. So I allude to it a little bit in the book, but I started wrestling as an 8th grader in the state of Indiana. And before I was ever able to get on the mat in a match, I ended up breaking my ankle. And it was over before I ever was able to come freshman year. There was no way I wasn't going to try wrestling again. I mean, it was a done deal. The funny part about that is my first meet I go to. So I basically win the varsity spot by default. I was the best of all the bad guys, right? So,
That's all right.
We go to a 5-way duel, and we're in the weigh-in line, and this guy all yoked up, got a mustache. I'm like, yeah, I wonder what weight he is. But not only is he my weight, he's the first guy to wrestle, right? And but the good thing for me was he was a fish. I mean, he flopped over on his back. I pinned him.
Nice.
Fits the rest away, and I thought I was pretty darn good, right?
Yeah.
Reality set in. I had a pretty mediocre record rest of my freshman year, but I wrestled. So I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, across the river when I was in junior high. So I wrestled in the state of Indiana through high school.
Okay.
And so I've been in and out of wrestling since then. So I graduated in '93, so getting to be an old guy, right? But done some coaching, started a couple of wrestling programs, coached some guys in some like the Bill Farrell and some tournaments like that. What made me write the book is I've been writing. I always knew I wanted to do a book on wrestling, really to promote the sport, let people know what it's all about and what they're missing in wrestling. Because I think it's very underserved in the media and people don't know a lot about it. So I always knew I wanted to do that. When I started writing books, I'd say 6-7 years ago, started officially doing it. That's when it became more concrete. And I had some other projects I did one. My mother's passed, but that's what got me started writing is I made her a promise. So my first book was a silly book about all the funny things adults say. She had asked me at one point to put it in words, put it in writing, and publish it. And so that was my first book. It's called Relative Genius. It's just a silly book, and it's all because people think they're intelligent, but it's all relative, right? And then most of the silly things that people said were my or my wife's relatives. So that's what I titled it. As a promise to my mother, I did a couple other books. You're an SEC country, so I did a book on the Southeastern Conference. Always grew up loving that. And then I was actually had another project that I thought about doing before this, but I got into this coaching hard. Like I said, the Farrell had a double champ at the U.S. Open a few years back, and just said, you know what, now's the time to do it. And so let's get into writing about wrestling to promote the sport. I think there's two things to it, right? We all know that the folks that don't know much about amateur wrestling, that we need to tell them about it and let them know the best kept secret out there. But I feel like a lot of us in the sport kind of take it for granted and don't really realize that there's a strong wrestling community in every state. So, that's one of the reasons that I wanted all 50 states represented in this book. I think that we need to understand that like you and I with each other just the other day. A lot of times we say, "Yeah, not that popular," but it really is popular. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
community in every state. So I just wanted to serve the wrestling community, write something that positively promoted the sport, and let people know just how great it is.
It's definitely a great sport. It's given you a lot. It's given me a lot. And any person that I know that's wrestled for any amount of time has nothing but great things to say about the sport. Yeah, sure, you're going to have your bad experiences. Nobody likes to lose, and I'm sure everybody's got their stories with that. But as far as I've never met, or I'm sorry, I've never seen a sport that has the ability to mold, shape, or change somebody's life as much as the sport of wrestling. And you know what? I never really figured out what that reason is, other than it's just such a tough sport, and you have to want to do it. You have to have that desire inside of you to succeed, because it's not fun all the time. Winning is fun, competing is fun, but the preparation, it's brutal. And anybody who's ever wrestled will tell you it's brutal. But if when I spoke with Johnny DeJulius on an episode of Grinding for Greatness about a month ago, he said, if you love something, you're gonna do whatever you got to do to make it happen. If you can get a kid that you're coaching to fall in love with the sport, he'll run through the wall for you. But if it's not fun, you're probably not gonna, care for it so much. So wrestling is, for me, it was fun. It was awesome. I made all my friends in my whole world are from the sport. So I'm glad you wrote the book. I'm not through with it. I'm about a quarter of the way through just because of time. But my wife tells me all the time, pick the damn book up and read. You watch too much TV, read. She's right. I got to stop watching and start reading more. But so far, what I've read is incredible. And I think the rest is going to be even better. One of the things that I have to thank you for, and I didn't even realize this, in the back of the book, you have the wrestling resource guide, and you have all the states listed, and under Florida, the FloridaWrestlingRoom.com, baby. So thank you so much for putting it in there. Now, obviously, we want to get this book out to the masses because it is a valuable piece of literature that everybody should read, kids, adults, coaches, whatever. And even if you're not into wrestling, read it because it'll teach you a lot about it. But talk to me about this giveaway. I know you're doing some kind of promotion giveaway to give back to the wrestling community. Tell me about that. What's going on with that, Ron?
Absolutely. So I call it the mat return drawing. So what we're going to do is August 11th, which is the end of the Olympic wrestling program. We're going to do this drawing for 50 prizes, and that represents 50 states that are in the book, right? Um, the prizes are from wrestling centric companies, so which I think they're great prizes. But you've got the Stand in Motion app, you've got Dopamino. How about Resolite? Resolite, we're going to have some award mats. So,
Oh, nice.
square there where you get sublimated. So someone with their 100th win, or maybe maybe it's even a youngster, their first tournament victory. So there's going to be some of those. Now I don't have those in hand because those are going to be customized, right? So the winner's
Yeah.
we're going to get together with Resolite, and then they can go ahead and formulate that what they want and everything, and then it'll get shipped out to them. Rudis, Cliff Keen are also part of it. Speaking about having things in hand, also work with Rudis. We've got a pair of Alpha 2 Bounce wrestling shoes and the Journey Moonwalker training shoes. Those are also part of the drawing. Also don't have those in hand, but that's because we've already taken care of it with Rudis. They've been nice enough to say, okay, when you get your winner, contact us. That way we can get the correct size.
Mm-hmm.
So, I kind of jumped around there, but excited about the companies that we partnered with, that have gotten prizes from. I mean, they're really going to be a benefit to the wrestling community. But like you said, at the end of the day, what this was about, I mean, the book is about promoting the sport of wrestling. This drawing is to help promote the book, right, and get the book in people's hands so they can understand how great it is. But I wanted to give back to the wrestling community and those that are supporting Matt Return. So, I've compiled these prizes. There is a chapter in the book about dedicated partners to the sport. Companies like a Cliff Keen, who's
Mm-hmm.
around forever, supporting and promoting wrestling. So wanted to partner with those companies, give back to the wrestling community for supporting wrestling, for supporting Matt Return, and it's just going to be a fun thing. And then, a cool little bonus here. So I just posted on Instagram the top 10 states right now of entries. Uh, Another little cool bonus that I'm doing is at the end of the drawing, the top 3 states with the most entrants per capita. I'm putting all those entries back in the pot, and I'm going to have some bonus drawing for prizes for those top 3 states per capita.
Awesome. Now, how does somebody get involved in this drawing? How do they get a ticket or a chance to win?
Yeah, great question. So it's really kind of I'd say threefold or even more than that. But first is purchasing Mat Return. It's available on Amazon. Another quick thing there is it's also discounted throughout the entirety of the drawing. The paperback and hard copy are both discounted right now. So if they purchase the book and then DM me on Instagram at the.coachlang, DM me your delivery details. What I'd like to know is when it's going to be delivered or when it was delivered. You can even send me a picture of you holding the book if you'd like, and then what state you come from, because I want to keep track of the states, right? So
Yeah.
they can do it that way. They can post about the book if they already have it. They can get entered by posting, whether it be on Facebook or Instagram, but tag me at the.coachlang on Instagram, or even just send me an email. You can get it through the clubs. All the clubs in the country, all the USA wrestling clubs in the country have gotten information about it, so they can email me. So promoting the book is another way, and then leaving a review on Amazon is another way to get entered. So there's multiple ways to get entered. You don't even have to. I mean, I would suggest that you purchase the book because
Of course.
it really is a great value and a lot of good.
Mhm.
But if you don't, if you just promote it, tell people about it, let me know that you've done that, I'll get you entered into it.
Yeah, and I got to tell you guys, man, if you haven't purchased the book yet or you're thinking about it, buy the damn book, man. The price point is unbeatable. I mean, it's under $20, man. I mean, right? What does it sell for?
Discounted to $18. So
Yeah, guys, $18, man. You can go to McDonald's and spend more than that. You really can. So it's something that you'll have forever. It's something that you could pass down to your kids. It's something that you can pass around your team. Speaking of, if you're a coach of a high school team, a junior high team, a club team, any team, what an awesome thing to have your kids reading this book, man. If you want to get the book for your kids, contact Ron. He'll work something out with you, to get like a bunch of books for the team. Ron, you'll do that, right?
yeah, actually, there's a couple of things I like to say about that. Number one, clubs are eligible to be entered into this. Okay, so um, all the prizes are different things. I mean, there's some Dopamino bands that clubs obviously could use. Let's just say if it's a shirt, say it's a youth shirt or a Cliff Keen or Ruta shirt. Clubs win it. You can utilize something like that for your like a wrestler of the month or something. But
Yeah, yeah.
clubs are able to get in. One of the things if they want to print and post my flyer that I've got, and you guys have a copy if they want to get that, they
Hmm.
flyer for this drawing, and we'll get them entered. I mean that's promoting the sport, promoting the book. So definitely want to get them entered. The other thing is, I want to work with clubs. I want to work with teams. So I've already done some of this, but I want people to understand fundraising. I'm open to doing fundraisers and helping out, whether it be maybe I could donate, a signed copy or two, or actually I set something up today to where a team well, it's actually an individual, another one of Fargo's. Have had multiple of these, but an individual wants to raise money for Fargo. They sent me a check. We made a deal where my expenses are paid and I get a couple dollars for each book. But for instance, they're going to sell the book for $20. They dollars for each book, so $10 every book they sell and get it out there, they get to keep and go toward their Fargo fund. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's just a cool way for us all to work together. I think as a wrestling community, how do we get stronger? We've already got the strongest sport and the toughest sport. And we also obviously have a lot of strong individuals, but there's strength in numbers. And by working together, not only can we make each other stronger, we can make the sport stronger. So
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, when you were writing this book, what was your main goal? Like, what the people that read this book, what do you want them to get out of it?
So I'll tell you, I kind of have I don't know if you call it a tagline, but my go-to is this is what my main goal was, and that was for high school and club coaches when they are approached by a potential wrestler or potential wrestling family, or they approach a potential wrestler family, that they would feel confident enough in my book to say, read any chapter out of this book and tell me why you wouldn't try wrestling.
That's incredible.
That was my ultimate goal. Like, all of us that are in the sport knows that come on in here and you will benefit from it. If you give an honest effort, you'll be helpful. You'll have to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. But at the end of the day, you're going to benefit from it, and you're going to be a better person. You're going to be a better athlete. And so this book talks about all types of different virtues and values of the sport. Some of it's physical, some of it's mental, some of it, like a chapter that we speak about you guys on, is about community, family, and support.
Mm-hmm.
I've coached a lot of sports. I've been in a lot of sports. Nothing compares to wrestling in every aspect, right? There's not another stronger community or support group or family oriented atmosphere that I've ever been a part of. And like I said, I've coached at the college level all the way down, many sports. There's nothing like wrestling, even in that aspect, right? So really what my goal was at the end of the day it's two pronged, right? For us in the wrestling community to understand and take advantage of that and appreciate it more, and let's grow it. And then on the other side of things, those that don't know about wrestling, let this be something that you can look into it and go, you mean to tell me there's all these kind of benefits in this sport? Why did I not know that before? And I need to give this a try, or I need to get my son or daughter involved. So that's really what my goal was.
Yeah. I was, one of the things that stuck out to me in the book, you have a section where you're talking about some of the great football players that were actually wrestlers. And I'm looking at it right now, and a couple of them are from my state, Florida. Ray Lewis from, I think he was in the, where'd he go? Lake Mary High School, I think. And then Eric Drett from MacArthur High School. Eric Drett and I were roommates at wrestling camp. We went to, the Bowls. So where Chris Bono went to high school, it's called the Bowls School. It was a private school in Jacksonville. Chris Bono, obviously the coach of Wisconsin, 2 or 3 time national champ for Iowa State. Him and his brother Ernie went to that school, and they had a big camp there. And Eric Drett and I wrestled for the same club. It was the Seahorse Wrestling Club out of Broward County, which is the Fort Lauderdale area. And we were roommates together. And you want to talk about an unbelievable athlete. Eric Drett is a freak of an athlete, man. I think that kid could have played ping pong and he would have been a world champion at it. But yeah, it's amazing. Ray Lewis, Lorenzo Neal, Charles White, Ronnie Brown, Ronnie Lott, Eric Drett, Jim Plunkett, the quarterback, wrestled. Roddy White, Teddy Bruschi, Ricky Williams. I didn't know Ricky Williams wrestled.
Yep.
I didn't know that. There's so many of them. Jim Everett, Larry Zonka, Tiki Barber. I'm a big New York Giants fan. You can see in the background, I got my pillow. Yeah, so there's just it's a great sport. We can't say it enough. And man, I'm really pumped to read the rest of the book. Chapter 8, you talk about girls and women's wrestling. Let's talk about that a little bit. What do you think, in your opinion, what has the growth of this women? It's off the charts. It's the largest growing sport, period, right now. At all the sports, the growth is bigger in women's wrestling than any sport right now. What do you think that's done for our sport?
Well, you don't mind, I'm going to go back real quick because on the football players, one of the things, once you look into it more, you're going to notice all the positions on top of it. You're going to notice kickers. You're going to notice quarterbacks.
I did.
Isn't that the craziest thing? It's not. Most people think of it as, probably your defensive lineman, yeah, or your line, but all different positions. And then there's a little thing at the end there. It also says, I was never able to confirm this. I don't know Bo Jackson, unfortunately, but they said that Bo wrestled too, which, as you and I know, what was the old tagline? Bo knows everything. So
right.
But so that's pretty about that too. You are so correct, though, with female wrestling. It's been so important. And what do I think it means for the sport? Honestly, I think it saved the sport in the Olympics. Now, that's a sad state of affairs that there was a point in time where they were thinking about dropping wrestling in the Olympics. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
what are we talking about here? One of the original Olympic sports, and they're talking about dropping it. But I think female wrestling saved it. And I think it's also it's very big part of this. My subtitle is the resurgence of amateur wrestling in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
and it's being led by women's and girls wrestling. What I think is the coolest part about that is that here are all these females that are getting opportunities, but the coolest part about it is they are just absolutely falling head over heels for the sport. They love
yeah.
it. Isn't that awesome? I mean, that's what like you talked about earlier. You got to have fun, or you're not going to keep banging your head against the wall in an intense sport like this. But these women, isn't that cool? So, and at the end of the day, all of these virtues and values I talk about in the book, if they're good for males, if my nephew, if it's good enough for my nephew and he should try it, why wouldn't I want my niece to benefit the same way? So,
Exactly. Going back to the girls wrestling real quick, man, I am I'm the self-proclaimed biggest supporter of girls wrestling in the state of Florida. I love them. I promote the heck out of them. I'm very, very good friends with many of our top girls, moms and dads, mostly the dads. And we talk a lot. And what this sport has done for these girls, the daughters of the guys that I'm talking to, they tell me that it has changed their daughters' lives completely, from giving them the self-esteem that they never had to, just holding themselves to a higher standard, walking around with confidence. And, those are just some of the little things that it's doing for these girls. And then when you have somebody like, Helen Maroulis, or, one of the top girls, Forrest Molinari, and you have these little girls looking up to them. What great role models they are. And these little girls want to, and I just saw Forrest Molinari a couple of weeks ago. She was down here at a camp she was doing for Pat Lugo from Iowa. He had his Miami Hawks wrestling camp going on in Miami, and she was there. And I saw these little girls just walking around with, like, their eyes were as big as saucers, just looking at her like she's like a god. I just thought it was so awesome. So yeah, now that Florida has sanctioned wrestling, which we're going into, I believe, our third year that we're going to have a state championships, and the girls wrestle right alongside the boys. It's the same weekend. They have the mats for the boys, and right next to it, the mats for the girls. They don't wrestle in a separate arena. They don't wrestle at a separate time. They're banging right there with the guys. It's amazing. Now, you're from Texas, right?
well, I'm originally from Kentucky, but I've lived in Texas the last 20 years.
Okay. Is it sanctioned in Texas yet?
Texas was the second state to sanction.
Okay.
They've been
Okay.
'99. To be quite honest with you, just in my personal opinion, I think the female wrestling in Texas is stronger than the men's wrestling.
Yeah. You know what? It could be like that in a few states. So some of our girls are so, like, for example, last Fargo, Florida came home with 4 champs.
I love it.
Not placers, champs. 4 big stop signs coming back to Florida. That's incredible for only being a sanctioned sport for 2 years, and we have 4 stop signs from Fargo, and then we had a bunch of girls placing third, fourth, fifth, whatever. So yeah, Florida's on the right track. They definitely have the respect of the rest of the country. And I just think it's a great thing. I'm glad that there's a chapter in this book dedicated to them.
Oh yeah. Well, so there's not only a standalone chapter to female wrestling, but there's female representation sprinkled throughout.
Yeah.
And excited to know. You probably hadn't gotten to it yet, but one of the Florida representatives is a female. And
who is it?
Ashlyn White. So,
oh yeah.
Yep. So it's but there's so many cool stories, like even outside of the women's and girls wrestling chapter. Because as you've seen, the chapters are broken down in age groups, and they're also broken down in virtues and values. Like I said earlier, the virtues and values are not, strictly adhered to the men's side. That's crazy to think that, right? So there's women throughout, and some of the cooler stories, and I won't give them away, but there's one girl in particular. There's actually some of the best stories are the females, but there's one girl. Check this out, high school girl. She wins Miss USA, Miss Junior Teen USA, or something of that nature, and turns around and wins a state championship in wrestling a few months later. So what I think is the coolest part about that is, so any of these young girls, like you said, that are looking into it and thinking about it, you don't have to trade your makeup. You don't have to trade your femininity. You can still get out there and compete and be rough and tumble, and you can still be a girl. And so there's no sacrifice there. And
Yeah.
so when these girls see that, they give it a try. That'll be the beauty of that. So
it's funny you just said that, because I remember vividly last year at some point on the Florida Wrestling Room Facebook page, one of the dads posted a picture of his daughter wrestling that day. She won the tournament, but she got busted up. They head butted by accident or caught a knee to the face, whatever. And she had a little shiner on her eye. And then he posted a picture right next to it from later on that evening, where she was in her gown with her date going to the prom. And so it was all on the same day. She wrestled in the morning, got all dolled up and looked beautiful in the evening, and went to prom the same day. It was the coolest picture. And he had her in her stance at the tournament, and then her and her boyfriend or whatever were in a stance together, because he wrestled too. So yeah, that's completely true what you just said. You don't have to, completely give away your femininity to become a wrestler, because some of the wrestlers that I know that are females, they are girly girls. They don't care. They're one thing on the mat, and then when they're off the mat, they're girls again. So you don't have to trade. That's for sure.
I think the only true difference, there's obviously some physical differences. I think the funniest thing is when they're kids, right? When they're 5-6 years old, the girls are probably stronger than the boys at that time period. And
Yep, 100%.
Then as you get older, and it splits, then I think that I think it's obvious. The boys get stronger, but then the girls are probably more technical and definitely more flexible at that point. So it's a pretty cool dynamic, but you can still work together in the room. There's a girl out of Maine that just won her second state championship against boys.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, we definitely need to have sanctioned girls wrestling. I don't think that a female should be forced to wrestle against the boys. I do think that if they want to take that opportunity, they should. But the other thing at the end of the day that I've learned through speaking to female leaders in the sport is that we should not judge these girls, win or lose, versus what they do against the boys.
Right.
So, a girl from Maine wins the state championship against boys. If Maine had a sanctioned girls tournament and she didn't win it, we shouldn't look down on her and say, "Hey, you beat the boys. How come you didn't beat this girl?"
Right.
That's the one thing that I've been educated on is let's not have expectations, good or bad, based off of what they did against boys.
Good point. Very good point. What if I made you say this, what chapter would be your favorite chapter in this book? Do you have a favorite chapter?
You know, that's hard to say because obviously there's so many good virtues and values. Just because of how much I hold dear to coaching, the title of coach, I take it seriously. I've always wanted to coach throughout my life. Matter of quick side note, I got my first coaching gig in high school in wrestling with the junior high. And I talk about it in the book, but the junior high coach's mother had passed away. Our varsity coach came to me and said, "Hey, you mind going to this tournament?" So we go to this tournament. So guess who ends up being the head coach of the team? It's the host team's tournament. We finished third behind their A and their B team, but it was coached by Joe Carr. So
wow.
So
Lucky you.
But what I would say is one of the last chapters is about leadership. Guys like Terry Steiner in there, Scott Legacy out of Connecticut. I would probably say that just myself because of when I think of coaching, I think of leadership, I think of education, and I take the title coach very seriously. And something that I hold dear to my heart. So that would probably be my favorite chapter. But thinking back on it, because of the journey that I went on to write the book, I'm sure reading it, I would love the youth chapter just to see in my mind, to see these kids running around, having a blast and laughing and joking and just, a joy that a child brings. Right. So to see them having fun in this sport, it's really hard to describe, right? Because kids are so much fun and so pure to begin with until we corrupt them, but they get bored and they see the joy and they're having a ball, and you can't hide a genuine joy. And so I'm sure when I go back and read the book myself, that chapter is also going to stand out to me, just thinking about all the kids running around with a big smile on their face and having fun.
Yeah, and I talked about this to another guest that I had about having fun, and you got to keep it fun. It is so important, especially at the youth level, to make it not so much about the competition, not so much about the winning, but making them love it and having fun. And if that means going and doing something totally unrelated to wrestling after the tournament, going to a museum or going to, a park or whatever it is, always do that. And I did that with my kids. We would make trips my friend Casey Thompson, he taught me this and he was huge on this. Every tournament, and his kid was elite level. Every tournament he would go to, he found something in that area, whatever state they were in, that he could do something fun with his son. And after the tournament, they would do that every single tournament. And it just got his son to love the sport. And he wouldn't associate a tournament with, oh my God, my dad's going to be screaming and yelling. He was associating that tournament with, oh man, I get to do something fun with dad afterwards. That you can't put a price tag on that. You just can't. Like, this sport brings families together in a way that I've never, ever seen it. It can also break up families if you don't know what you're doing. And that was a whole nother thing I talked with Johnny DeJulius about, the lunatic dads that it's all about winning, and that's all bullshit. It's all got to be fun. Let the kids have fun. Doesn't matter whether they win or lose, give them a hug and a kiss and go to the next one. But yeah, keep it fun, keep it light. And I think that's Casey really hit the nail on the head with that one. And his kid grew up loving the sport, went on to wrestle Division One at Franklin and Marshall, which they're a D3 school, but for wrestling, they're Division One in Pennsylvania. Now, real quick to change the topic, you said you grew up in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Okay, my high school wrestling coach was from Kentucky, and then he went on to wrestle at Michigan State. Who?
Randy Miller.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Randy was my coach.
I talked to him. He's back in Kentucky, believe it or not. He was,
I know.
sort of what, 20, 25 years?
Long time.
Yep. Yeah.
So Randy was like a second father to me. I was in 8th grade. Randy recruited me to go to St. Thomas Aquinas High School. And he goes, we need a 98 pounder. Because back then it was 98. It wasn't 103 or 106. It was 98. And I was like 88 pounds, 89 pounds soaking wet. And St. Thomas was one of the perennial powerhouse teams in the Fort Lauderdale area. And I went and I wrestled for Randy. And I love that man. I love him like another father. He would take me, he was big into bass fishing, and I loved bass fishing. So he would take me on the weekends when we didn't have wrestling. We would go bass fishing. He was like an older brother, because Randy, I was 14, 15 at the time. Randy was only 27, 28. He was a young coach back then. So he was kind of like an older, like a big brother to me. I loved Randy. Do you know that Randy coached Brian Smith, who's the current coach at Missouri? Yeah. So Randy's got a lot of ties to a lot of people, man. What a good dude.
Super guy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. He hasn't been back in Kentucky very long. I don't think.
No, it's not long at all.
But yeah, I spoke with him, to be honest with you. I thought he was down in Florida when he told me that he was back. But yeah, isn't that something?
Next time you see him, next time you see Randy or talk to him, say, hey man, I talked to your 98 pounder. He had me on his podcast, Ricky Marcus, and you watch what he says. He'll start laughing.
I'm going to say, he told me you lied to him and said that there was an 88 class, but there wasn't.
No, but you can tell him this. He did lie to me about cutting weight. So my sophomore year, I was like 116 pounds, and the weight class was 105 or 108. I forget what it was. And he goes, you got to wrestle this weight class. I got to get you down. And I'm like, I can't make it, coach. You're going to make it. So he calls my dad, and my dad's name's Shelly. He goes, Shelly, I'm keeping your kid for the weekend. He's going to come stay with me and Kim. His wife is Kim. He's going to stay with me and Kim. Now, this is before he had children. He's going to stay with me and Kim. I'm going to keep him for the weekend. I'm going to get him down to weight. My dad's like, okay, yeah, no problem. So I get there, and I'm like, what's for dinner? And he goes, your dinner's right there. I go, Coach, there's nothing there. He goes, look on that plate. I go, Coach, that's 9 grapes. He goes, yeah, that's your dinner. You're going to eat 9 grapes. I've weighed them out. You'll pee off more than what they weigh in the morning, and you're still going to get the nutrition. I go, I'm going to get nutrition from 9 grapes. He goes, 9 grapes. He goes, when you're done eating the grapes, we're going to go for a run, and then you're going to take a shower and go to bed. He locked me in the bedroom because he didn't trust that he thought I was going to come out and eat everything in the refrigerator. He put a friggin' chair under the thing, and he was right, because that's what I was doing. I was trying to come out in the middle of the night. I'm like, what the heck? So it was looking back now, it's hilarious. Back then, it wasn't so funny. I was starved, man. But guess what? I made weight. Made weight, man. So yeah, that's my Randy Miller weight cutting story.
Hey, so I've got a good little story. You're talking about making it fun and this, that, and the other. One of the programs I started here in the state of Texas, wrestling programs. So it's at a military school here in this town my wife's from. And so we have kids from all over it's perfect for wrestling, right? And it took me 2 or 3 years for them to give in. Just hardcore, full court press on them to get wrestling started. So we get this started. We've got kids from Alaska, Oklahoma, Ohio that are good wrestlers. A couple of them we took to nationals in the mid 2000s. Actually, it was the year Burroughs won senior nationals. I had a senior and junior national kid there, but it was in Pittsburgh at the time. But we're at this military school, So keep in mind, these kids are on campus 24/7. They keep a hard lock on them. They don't really get to go out and do much. So a sport where you can go out on outside of campus and participate, they liked it. But the funny part of the story, part of it I want to tell you is one of our kids was local, and his dad owned Dairy Queens,
Oh,
and so we wrestle and everything. I mean, it's actually going pretty well. We I think we lost two duels throughout the whole year, so we did pretty well. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to have some kids that came in from some wrestling states, but the kid's dad, he's so proud and he's so happy that had the kids and all that. He's like, Coach, I got blizzards for everybody. I mean, wonderful guy, generous, nice guy, trying to do something good and fun for the kids, but just didn't really jive.
yeah.
It's blizzard. At least we don't wrestle until next week again, right? But like you said, looking back on it, it's funny. I stressed way too much about it at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't fight it because I knew the situation these kids are in, kind of cooped up and locked up on campus, and it's like, okay, it's a small thing. Plus, I didn't want to be disrespectful to a guy who was trying to be nice to our kids, but it was like
Right.
internally, I'm stressing out, going, man, I just had these kids, barely had a couple of them make weight, and now you're it's done.
Poor guy who's trying to do something nice.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, but my wife had never been exposed to seeing me coach wrestling, and she'd never been exposed to wrestling. Not
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of wrestling here, so we go to the first meet she goes to. I mean, it's funny because as a coach, just like as an athlete, you don't really hear what's going on in the stands, what people are saying, what's happening. You're focused, right? So after it was all over, we kind of had a break between a duel and go over and talk to her. I'm like, all right, you're going to stick around and watch it? She's like, man, that's so intense. I had to take my shoes off. My feet were sweating. Like, she was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's so intense. But she's obviously grown to love it as she understands it more. So.
Yeah, my wife was the same way. I've only been married to Lori for a short time. But both of us were married before, but we've been married almost 3 years now. And when I first started bringing her, to tournaments, obviously she didn't know what's going on because she's never seen wrestling, and she was kind of slow to pick it up. And then, I asked her, I said, so what'd you think? What'd you think? She's like, yeah, I don't think it's for me. I'm like, that wasn't exciting? She goes, I didn't really know what was going on. I said, you got to give it another shot. I bring her to a girls tournament. That was it. Hooked. She goes, oh my God, those girls are so amazing. They're so intense. I go, the boys were wrestling. She goes, yeah, but it's different. These girls are different, man. She loved it, man. She was so pumped on the girls wrestling. So, and that's what they were doing for the sport. They're opening the eyes of people that may not have watched wrestling otherwise, but now they are because of them, so it's just bringing in a whole new audience to the sport. And I'm just so grateful that the girls wrestling is here and sanctioned and growing and growing and growing.
I think some of us knucklehead guys, some things too. Like, for instance, one of the things that I never really realized, and I look back on it and I see some of my greatest friends come from the sport, right? Or we would be from a different high school, but we would wrestle. We didn't really have clubs back then, but we'd wrestle the AAU circuit together and stuff like that together. So we became friends. But one thing that I noticed about the girls can go out there and try to rip each other's heads off. And before they even walk off their mat, they're hugging each other and
Yeah.
they're exchanging phone numbers and they're the best of friends. And I think that that's something that we can learn from. Is there's nothing wrong with competing, but you don't have to hate everybody or stay away from someone, like, hey, get to know that person. You might become friends or maybe learn some good wrestling techniques from them. And so I think the girls are teaching us a lot of things that we've just been so hard headed to even see that are right in front of us. And it's once we all get more comfortable with each other and figure out how this thing should go, I think wrestling is going to explode. But I also think that just the growth, it's hard not to grow in wrestling, right? I mean, you have to be, you have to walk away from it and quit without giving it a chance, or you have to really be trying to fight against personal growth. Uh,
Mm.
but I think once we all come together, it's amazing what this sport's going to do for individuals, whether it be competitors or coaches or even fans. This sport offers so many positive things, and you've probably heard me say this, but it's the most transformative pursuit in all of life outside someone's faith. I don't know about war. I've never been in the military wartime, so and that's a negative thing, right? But in terms of positive, outside of your faith, there's nothing more transformative than the sport of wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. And going back to what you were saying, what the sport would do for you if you give it a chance and stick with it. Look at just, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Look at some of the great people that we have in this world that were wrestlers, neurosurgeons, presidents, vice presidents, military leaders. I mean, some of the greatest people in the world were wrestlers. And that just speaks volumes for the character that this sport builds. Does everybody come out of the sport a great person? No, of course not. But as a whole, I think wrestling will get you to where you need to be way quicker than any other sport. And I've played other sports. I've wrestled. I played baseball, hockey, and there's nothing like wrestling. Nothing at all. Let's wrap this up with, I just want you to let the people know how to get the book again, how they can contact you, and again, a little bit about the contest and how they can get involved.
Absolutely. So I wanted to say a couple surprises in the book, right? You mentioned, you already talked about football players, you talked presidents, leaders. How about owners, CEOs, founders of some of the biggest companies? Um, how about the owner of sports teams? So there's a lot of that get revealed in the book as well.
Nice.
And then the other thing that I wanted to say is, after every fourth chapter in the book, there is a piece that I put together. I guess you would call them poems of different sorts, right? Just so happens the girls and women's chapter is chapter 8.
Hey,
That one, there's one about female wrestling, and it starts off with a male voice and then goes to the female perspective. And my favorite line is, "You don't have to be worried about protecting me like I want to be able to protect myself." And so there's a lot of cool things. There's some surprises that are going to come along. I'm going to develop some posters for some of those. Um, but to answer your question, it is available on Amazon right now. It is discounted, and it will be discounted throughout the drawing. Um, the drawing is going to be happen August 11th. Uh, people get in by purchasing the book, DMing me their details, their delivery details, and what state they're from. You can get in by promoting the book, putting up the flyer for the drawing, or just posting up about the book itself, even if it's something that they've heard from someone else, or if they see the cover, they like the cover, something like that, right? Um, or like a club, post up the flyer in your room or email it to your parents.
mm-hmm.
But contact me and let me get you entered into the drawing. And how you can do that is on Instagram at the.coachlang. So THE.COACHLANG. So you can do that. Your local club also, they'll have my information. They'll have my email address. I'm sure you guys will probably put the flyer up. It'll
Oh
also
yeah,
on there.
it'll be on the show.
Yep. So either way, I want to give back to the wrestling community. Uh, this book is all about promoting the sport. I know what it's done for me. I've seen what it's done for so many others. And at the end of the day, what I just hope is that people give it a try. Even if it's a young kid wrestles for 2 seasons, later on in life, I promise you, they're gonna overcome something difficult or they're going to achieve something great. And they are going to realize that, hey, some of that is from what I learned or I developed within myself that year
Mhm.
wrestled as a kid. And
Yeah.
so that's why I want to see more people in it. I would love for us to grow the sport to a point where we have more coverage and things like that. But at the end of the day, why do we love wrestling? And why do so many people say, and you need to give wrestling a try. You need to wrestle because we know what it can do for them. It's not going to do anything for us that some kid in Nebraska is wrestling that I don't know. It's not going to do anything for me, but I want that person to wrestle because he or she is going to develop something, and that's what I love. That's what I hope, and then that person will. I mean, speaking of, and how about this for females? How great is it going to be when we get another generation later, and there's so many females that say, I want my daughter wrestling.
Yeah.
Or how about we have more female officials? We have more female coaches. We have more female CEOs that will turn around and say, let's help support that sport or that team or that club because I know what wrestling. I mean, how wonderful is that, right?
Yeah.
So
That's what it's all about.
it is. It's great, and we've got a bright future ahead of us.
Absolutely. Hey, do you want it to remain a secret, or can I read that little excerpt, the "Let Us Wrestle" from the girls?
Go ahead. How about
All
this?
right.
You want me to read the men's part of it, and then you can read
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay, ladies. So this is titled "Let Us Wrestle," and I'm going to read you the male voice. You wrestle? What are you doing? It isn't very ladylike. How is this the activity of your choosing? You'll practice and maybe compete with boys? Didn't you like your dress, the dolls, and the little girl toys? Aren't you afraid of getting hurt? Wouldn't you prefer dancing or tossing a ball on a soft patch of dirt? This isn't the future that I had projected. I wanted you to be happy and always feel protected.
And now the girls' response to that in my voice. Well, there's no reason to be tense. It is an opportunity for me to learn, a chance to develop my confidence. I don't want my talents to sit on the shelf. I need to show my competitive side and the ability to protect myself. I was happy to find a place to belong. Wrestling provides much more than that. So your concerns should all be gone. There's no better way to develop for girls. Wrestling will teach us discipline, and we don't have to trade makeup or curls. This isn't just a sport, it is a vessel. Women are talented and tough. It'll present itself when we wrestle. See, there's no good reason for all of the shaming. Wrestling is for females. Let us show you how it's life changing. Dude, that's awesome. Did you write that?
I did.
That is awesome. I love that, man.
You know,
I,
I
this should this should be on every wrestling room wall in a poster form.
so this one in particular, and at the very end, there's one called Essence of Wrestling that um, I'm working on developing posters for because I think it should be. So Nick Perler out of Missouri,
Mm-hmm.
the Essence of Wrestling says to me, it's like this needs to be on a poster in every wrestling room in the country. Uh, but I also think that Let Us Wrestle, this one that's dedicated to females, should also be on a poster and
100%.
working on that.
Yeah, that would be amazing, man. That would be amazing. So let me ask you this, and then I'm gonna let you go. If somebody wants you to sign it like you did to me, get their own personalized signed copy from Ron Lang, the author, that is a possibility, correct?
It is. You know, you
Okay.
want to reach out to me. So kind of like we talked about doing fundraisers, different stuff. If you want to reach out to me at the.coachlang on Instagram, you just let me know. We'll work out something. You can purchase one through me, and I'll still get you entered into the contest, right? One of the reasons it's so important on Amazon is because we get these rankings up and let them know because, I mean, the rankings fluctuate, hourly, really.
Yeah.
But I've been the highest ranked amateur wrestling book many times on Amazon. But I mean, I'm still like 50th at best or 70th because they lump it into wrestling, which is all the WWE stuff. So I would love to have its own category, right? I think that wrestling is its own category. Even if it's so, there's one Olympic sports, but it doesn't break down to the actual sport. Like I would love for wrestling to have its own category. Kind of going off in a rabbit hole there on why it's important to go through Amazon, but I would love to sign a copy for folks. If they want to reach out to me on Instagram, DM me, they can cash at me or something, and
Okay.
I'll sign one and get it mailed out. Obviously, it'll be a little bit more because of the shipping and stuff like that, but it'll still be a good deal. I'll make sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And guys, if you want, you can also contact me right on the Florida Wrestling Room Facebook page, private message me, or you can even private message Ron himself, Ron Lang. He's a member. I'll get you in contact with him. I'll tell you exactly how to get your autographed copy. Let's get these books out in people's hands. Let's get the book in your hand. Let's get this book read, and let's just talk about it, because it really is. And guys, I don't push stuff like this. This is the first book I've ever really promoted, but it's a great book. Just from what I've read already, you got to get it. Please, guys, support this book. It's going to help the sport of wrestling. If you love the sport, you're going to love this book. So let's jump on that. Ron, thank you so much. I'll keep in touch with you. We'll talk next week sometime. But thank you for coming on the show. And if there's anything else that I can do for you, just let me know.
I certainly appreciate you having me. I appreciate being open to all the great things that you're doing to be able to have you in the book. It was an honor for me to have you guys in the book, because like I said, it's about changing wrestling, and that's what you guys are doing, changing the landscape and growing wrestling. So thank you. Appreciate all you guys do, and appreciate all your listeners to supporting you and sticking with you, because we may not be able to change the world, but we can change the world around us. So you guys change the wrestling world in Florida, and you'll make a difference, I promise.
Hey guys, Ricky Cheese here. Thanks for listening to the show. Remember, you can watch Grinding for Greatness on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the GFG YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like, and leave a comment on your favorite episode and who you'd like to see next on the show. I'll see y'all soon on the next episode of Grinding for Greatness.